Hello, it's Cherry here, your host. I have a couple of housekeeping notices just before we get this episode started. First things first, this is a pilot episode. This is my first time working in audio, so please forgive me for any editing errors, any audio quality issues. I am learning. I'm going to get better, I promise. And if you have any advice, any comments, any critiques, or if you just want to send me some hate mail, get in contact. I would love to know what you think. While recording this episode, I got confused as to what I named the podcast. So I think at one point in time, I start calling it the exam room. It's not the exam room, it's the exam hall. My God, so much mental energy and effort went into deciding whether it was the exam room and the exam hall. That one word difference really took up a lot of my time. But yes, I apologize for getting confused. It is the exam hall. It's not the exam room. Exam hall. Lastly, I am currently looking for people to join me on future episodes of the exam hall. So, if you're listening to this episode and you think, I want to get involved, I want to be a guest, come get involved, come be a guest. You do not have to be an Oxbridge graduate, you do not have to be a rocket scientist or a heart surgeon, you just have to be yourself. Of course, if you are those things, that's perfect, but just yourself, that's all I want. That's all I want. That is more than enough. So if you do want to get involved, you can get in contact on social media at the Exam Hall Pod, or you can click the link in the episode description, which will take you to an expression of interest form. I can't wait to talk to some of you. I'm so excited to get this podcast going and to get it up on its feet. So I'm just going to stop talking and let you enjoy the episode. Welcome to the exam hall. My name is Cherry and I will be your host. I am a theatre maker, poet and bit of a wanker from London. This is the exam hall. This is our pilot episode. So number one, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for stopping by wherever you may be, whoever you are. Number two, this is our pilot episode. We are still working things out. I'm working out intros, outros, in-betweenos. So please be patient and thank you. And number three, let me tell you what's going on. Let me tell you what you're listening to. This is the Exam Hall, the podcast where each episode I will be sitting down with a very special guest and answering questions from what is known as the hardest exam in the world. The All Souls entrance exam. All Souls College, Oxford is maybe the most prestigious academic institution in the world. To be eligible to apply, you must already hold a degree from Oxford, and the college awards only 2 fellowships per year. Each applicant must sit 4 3-hour exams, 2 of those being a specialist paper, and the other 2 being a general paper, which is where we are drawing our questions from. If you're lucky enough to be an appointed fellow, you are given funding for a 7-year period to fund research, you have free board, you get a salary, you have access to study any subject at Oxford of your choosing, and you are given contacts with leading professionals and scholars in your field. However, in this alternate reality, multiversal podcast version of All Souls, we have no eligibility criteria. Everyone is welcome no matter what qualification you do or do not have. Holding an astrophysics PhD is just a valid qualification as being alive for X number of years. All are welcome, all are equal here. Basically, we're going to be sitting down, some interesting people, having interesting conversations, and along the way we're going to have a conversation about education and accessibility. So, I mean, there's really nothing else to do but to welcome my guest for this, the first episode. I could not be more excited to have this person here with me today. Love them. I think they're my best friend, and I think she's my biggest hater. It is the one, the only, the gorgeous, the intelligent, the smart, the stunning. It's Mahvish Malik! Woo! Hi, Mahvish.
Hello.
How you doing today?
Fucking awful, to be honest.
Oh, no, why?
Too many adjectives, mate.
Too many adjectives?
Someone had a thesaurus on the way here.
Oh.
Hello.
Hello. Welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for being
The
here
podcast
with
filmed in
me.
my room. But welcome to the podcast.
Shh. We need to keep up the sort
illusion.
of illusion.
Oh my god, we're in a studio.
Welcome to the studio.
We're so cool for
Definitely
this.
not your bedroom. Mahvish, welcome to the podcast.
Hello.
Tell me, what qualifications do you have to be sitting here today?
Being a hater of Cherry Eccles.
Number
for the
one.
Past, how many years?
We met. We became.
I was friends in year 9.
We would have made. No, we made friends in year 8.
Did we?
Because I had no friends, so this is really embarrassing. Me and Mahvish we've known each other since year 7.
Yeah.
Been friends since year 8. And in year 8, I had no friends. So I learned what Mahvish liked, and I went away and forced myself to like it. That was Dan and Phil. I knew you liked Dan and Phil, so I went away and watched Dan and Phil and came back to our French lesson the next day being like, Dan and Phil are really cool, don't you think?
Fun story. This goes a step further. I only got into Dan and Phil because I think Emily told me that I reminded her of Dan.
Wow.
So, in essence, Emily Fletcher, big shout out, so much
Big
love.
shout out, big friend of the pod.
Big friend of the pod. It's thanks to her, really.
It is, yeah, it's all down to her. Mahvish,
Yeah.
what experience do you have? What qualifications do you have to be eligible for Podcast All Souls?
Why am I qualified? I don't know.
Tell me about yourself. I knew you'd do this. I feel like I need to be... Either I'm going to introduce you.
You need to intro me, but I can't be present for that. But also that's impossible.
You need to be able to advocate for yourself, Mahvish.
So a white person's going to tell me how to advocate for myself?
Yeah, I am.
Maybe dismantle
dismantle
white supremacy first, Cherry.
No.
Put that on the to-do list. Anyway, okay. Hi, I'm Mahvish. I've known Cherry for so long.
Yeah.
Too long, some might say.
Too long.
All would say. Her mother would say. I went to school with Cherry, unfortunately.
I was hoping this would be more about you. Tell us about you.
No, but this is giving context as to why I'm here.
They don't need to know that.
They do.
Okay.
Anyway.
Sure.
I do English at the University of Cambridge. Boo to Oxford.
Boo to Oxford.
Boo to All Souls.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that Cherry decided to launch this as, ooh, the exam room, ooh, All Souls Oxford, but filming her first episode in Cambridge.
Yeah.
Cambridge Superiority, GDBO,
yeah.
Shout out. Anyway, I do English. Love English. Love books.
Love books.
That's actually debatable, to be fair.
You're an amazing, I want to say, like, you do brilliant columns. Mahvish is a brilliant...
3 things, Cherry.
And each of them are brilliant.
That doesn't count.
Literally.
I edit Cherry's poems, that's what I do.
Mahvish is also my editor for All and Everything.
If I had to really, really go really hyperbolic with my qualifications, I'd say I'm an editor.
You're an editor.
Editor of Cherry's shit.
I'd say you're a critical writer. Everything you write.
Critical writer.
Well, like, non-fiction doesn't feel right. I don't know. Is it
critical writer?
You're a writer.
What does that even mean?
I don't know. We need to get started. This is so much waffle.
As we said, we have ice cream to have.
Well, I was going to do your introduction again, just like making sure they knew that you're really great. And Mahvish is great, smart, love her. Anyway, let's actually get started with the podcast. So the format of this podcast, every episode, sitting down with a guest, and we're going to answer a question from the general paper of the All Souls entrance exam. Today's question comes from September 2019. A simpler time, some might say.
We turned
18.
Oh, that's kind of poetic.
And I didn't even put that together. Wow, no. That's so nice. Yeah. Okay.
For context, Cherry and I share. We don't share a birthday.
We share a
week. We share a week. Our birthdays are 4 days apart.
Yeah.
Big slay.
Shout out. Were you St George's? Were you born in St George's?
No, I was born in Kingston upon Thames.
Oh, okay. Ew, okay. Maybe I don't want you on my podcast.
We're going to dox ourselves. Cherry's address is...
Today's question
comes from the 2019 paper.
Mm-hmm. And the question is, has single-sex education had its day?
Oh, what a question.
What a question. Mahvish, tell me, why did you pick this question? Because when we were going through them, this one, you're sort of going, oh, yeah, maybe that one. And then I said this one and you went, that one. Why did you pick this one?
I think some of the ones Cherry said were a bit naff. I don't know who she thought I was as a person.
I didn't know how much you wanted to get into politics or if you wanted to like talk about literature or...
This thing, I don't want to expose myself as a fake literature student. There are so many books on my shelf that I just haven't read. I've probably read...
I feel like that's most literature students.
No, you've got some real neeks in this place. Anyway,
wow,
hot
exposed.
take.
Oh my god.
No, I just think it's apt for our friendship for us to do a question like that. I think
context, we went to a single-sex school.
Yes.
I don't know if we can say the name of it.
I think we should. I don't think we should say the name of it.
I'm going to say an all-girls school in South London, and those who know.
If you know, you know.
If you know, you know. South Londoners will know.
If you know the news articles, you know.
We went to a single-sex school.
Yeah.
That's how we met each other. You're now at a single-sex college.
No.
Medwith is...
Oh, it is single-sex, but it's not single-gender. # misconception. For context, I go to Murray Edwards College, Cambridge.
Yeah.
It's just no cis men.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah.
What a vibe.
It's quite slow. Yeah, no, I thought the question was fun. I think single-sex schools are valid. Low-key, high-key. I think my opinion changed on it from when I was a child to who I am as a person now. And I just think it's conducive to the discussions we're going to have regarding education and barriers. What do you mean?
This is my worry with getting you on the podcast is that you're so... I can't even think of the word.
Oh, don't be... Oh, my God.
Oh,
my God.
What's the word where it means... You know lots of words. What word is that? It's gone from my head.
Oh, I don't know. Just got a good vocabulary in it. That's it, surely. Oh, eloquent.
Eloquent! You're so eloquent.
I got called eloquent. No, I didn't.
No, she...
Oh my god, context, Cherry, story time.
We are cutting this out. But
no, I think it's so valid.
Okay, story time. In our single-sex school, bringing it back to the question, in our single-sex school, me and Mahvish were doing like a one-day sort of school project. It was towards the end of the year in year 8, so we're sort of just doing arts and crafts. And we had to
Fun the arts.
Woo! And like we had to like make a clock, and Mahvish wrote the description for our clock, and like Mahvish is a very, very eloquent writer. If go and read Mavish's articles on Varsity.
This is so embarrassing.
Go and read them. They're brilliant articles. Everyone thinks they're brilliant.
Don't read them. Carrying on.
Yeah, basically Mahvish wrote a description of this like fun little clock we did, and a teacher went, oh, Cherry, did you write that? And we were like, no, Mahvish wrote it. And she was like, oh, I'm so surprised Mahvish wrote it. And then I was like, actually, Mahvish is really eloquent and smart, and I'm an idiot, so how dare you say that? Let's actually talk about this. So what was your experience of being in a single-sex school?
Can't lie, kind of slayed.
Yeah.
Over the course of it, I think it's slayed, though. I think you don't really see the benefits of it until you're gone and until you're out of that environment. Because I've come here and I don't think I would be as annoying and jarring and outspoken as I am now if I didn't go to a single-sex school.
Yeah. Not
to be like, boys are trash, but I think when you're in that formative time of your life where you're like working out your voice, as annoying as that sounds.
So you feel like it made you more of an advocate for yourself and more outspoken?
Yeah.
I would agree. Our maths teacher in our yearbook
who we won't name,
wrote, I think he was very valid in saying this. He said, name of our schoolgirls, sometimes right, sometimes wrong, always certain.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Right, and I feel
he was so valid for that, Heike.
So valid, and I feel like that really like describes. I feel like that really encapsulates like.
Yeah.
I was a self-conscious young person, but as all young people are, but I do think I wasn't self-conscious because there were boys. Like,
yeah, it would have added a layer of like,
definitely.
Oh my god, I need to perform in a certain way.
Definitely.
Because I think everyone at school had some form of identity crisis at one point or another.
Of course, everyone does. I think when you're growing up, it feels like you're the only one.
Yeah,
I'm the only one who feels this way. I'm the only one who hates myself. Nah, you grow up. Especially, I went I went back and as a teaching assistant to the school, which is kind of sad.
It's not. She was so loved by the kids.
Yeah.
Did I just do a line?
I love them.
I thought.
I love them. Yeah, shout out the kids I used to teach. But
Squad.
Squad. Yeah, going back as sort of an adult, kind of an adult. I mean, I was a teenager when I started teaching there. I was 19.
Yeah.
Which, looking back, I'm like, how? Who decided?
Is that allowed?
Is that allowed? Who decided? But going back as in a professional capacity, you go back and you realize, everyone here is miserable. I think that's part of being a teenager, being miserable. But the good thing about being in a single-sex school is our misery was never because of men in what was meant to be our safe space.
Yeah.
And I do think being in a single-sex school definitely meant we were very much in a bubble.
Yeah.
Well, speaking about this earlier, that sort of coming out of education, going into the real world.
The real world.
Like, we've noticed that how much of a bubble we were in. What's your experience coming into, we were in a all-girls state school in South London. What's your experience coming, I know you're in a single-sex college here, but what's your experience coming to Cambridge, where a lot of people here are grammar school and private school? Do you know the percentage?
Fuck's sake, don't put me on the spot like that.
I thought you might know the percentage.
I think, no one quote me on this because I will be very easily disproven by one Google search, but I think it's like 60 to 7% like state school.
Right.
But I don't think the stats distinguish state comp and state grammar.
Interesting.
The context our school was a state comp.
Yes.
With academy status, no one knew what that meant. That just meant we stole funding.
I still don't know what academy means.
I mean, I don't think it means anything.
Okay.
It's a quirky thing for Wikipedia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, what's your experience sort of coming to Cambridge, where there are so many people from
different
backgrounds, but I mean private and grammar backgrounds.
Yeah.
And also male backgrounds. How scary.
Also white people. For context, I'm brown. Because we haven't said that on the podcast yet.
I'm going to say something that maybe isn't woke. Your name is Mahvish Malik. I think people would be surprised if someone with the last name Malik was white.
You never know.
You never know. Maybe you married into it.
I could have had a brown dad and a white mum.
But then
you don't know my life.
We're getting onto a separate conversation.
This is what I love doing.
I hate you. Maybe I shouldn't have invited you on here.
And keep the white narrative up. Yeah.
Yes.
Thanks,
yes.
Sherry.
Yes.
In fairness, the majority of my friendship group is white. But I think that was the same at school as well. The only difference at school was that the broader community was very ethnic.
Yeah.
Big slay. Culture days at...
You just said the name, so I'm going to have to bleep that.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
we had a culture day after we left while I was working there. We had a culture day. It was live. It was so good.
It's so joyous.
Good. It was really joyous. I wore red, white, and blue.
Oh, for fuck's sake!
It was very I had
Absolute
like I had a white top on, a red jumper, and blue jeans. And all the students were like, "Miss, where's your culture dress?" And I was like,
"This is it.
I'm just British. I'm sorry,
British." I think coming to a place like this, you realise they're like rich people in your school. They were not going to say they weren't that rich, but there's a new level of richness and world of the elite that's unlocked, in the sense of there were people in our school who had sort of second homes, cleaners, really well-paying jobs, but here it's like there's a culture behind it for a lot of people. You see people who have estates, who sort of rub shoulders with the government, who have that sort of... They've grown up in a very different world. It's not just like we don't go to different schools. It's like a lifestyle thing for them.
Have there been any moments, either in like lectures or seminars or like out socially, where you've sort of really felt that, like that tension between kind of more upper class backgrounds that you would find at an institution like Cambridge?
What I have found is like it's a lot harder to entertain conversations like that. I just don't think I really have the vocabulary or the sort of even the capacity to imagine levels of rich that people are. And that sort of detaches me from conversations sometimes, whereby it's like I can't relate to any of this. First off, that's kind of clear, but also in the sense of like you sort of deal with a simultaneous shock of like, oh my god, people really live like this. It's not a funny joke. You know, we take the piss out of posh people. We put on a funny accent. We're like, wankers, whatever.
Yeah.
When people actually talk like that, or like you realise that some of your peers, not everyone came from a state comp background, and you're like, oh fuck, it's a bit of a faux pas to be like, oh yeah, back in school and it was like this, and it's like, no, I boarded, or I went to private school, or I went to grammar school, and it's like, oh, those differences are a lot more present than I think I thought they were.
Do you feel like you can't, some of your peers here, you feel like you can't quite relate to them? And I don't mean specifically like here in this college, just in Cambridge in general.
Yeah, I think, again, back to the sort of like cultural side of it, whereby people live in a certain way, they operate in very specific circles, and those circles include like private members clubs, or sort of these fancy dinners, or I don't know, fucking drinking wine with some poshos from the government. Like,
yeah,
I think we joke about that sort of stuff being at Oxbridge, but then seeing the reality of it and being like, oh my god, no, this is very much present. It's like, oh fuck,
so
it's real.
You were sort of saying before that being in a single sex school helped you advocate for yourself. Do you feel, when you find yourself in these spaces, do you kind of, can you feel
like,
the
fuck,
background?
I can't advocate now. No, I think because I think the levels of advocacy even that we're talking here is like, you know, I'm willing to argue against something in like a supervision when we're talking about my essay, or like I can ask for help if I need it, because we've sort of grown up in an environment where that was quite welcome and almost encouraged. But I think it doesn't I'm not saying it doesn't necessarily help, but it doesn't do the work that's necessary. It doesn't sort of confer this sort of social cultural capital with it that, you know, you think you might. Actually, I'm not going to say social cultural capital, because my lovely RS teacher, shout out, whose name I can't say, would always talk about cultural mobility rather than capital.
Nice. I feel like if we're being nice about people, we're allowed to say that. I actually don't know.
Consent.
Do you want to say initial, or do you want to just say my RS teacher and she'll know?
If you know, you know.
If you know, you know.
And
that's so true.
Don't get Gas Cherry thinking she's going to listen to this. But she might.
I thought you might send it to her. I don't know. I don't know what relationship you have with her.
To be fair, I see her in our local area frequently. To be fair, but so she'd speak about this idea of social and cultural mobility rather than capital, because I think capital inheres within it a very specific cultural canon that's easily sort of, not easily transferable, but like inherited in a very specific manner, and then transfers you into those specific circles. But I think her term of mobility is a bit more, I think it speaks to what it does a bit more accurately. It lets you move around those circles. It lets you navigate that space whereby, you know, you might fit in, you might not. But you've got these sort of resources that you're able to call upon to help navigate that. I think doing English, there's a very specific canon that also Cambridge likes to teach. So for context, the first 2 years of the degree, it's period based. So you do a medieval paper, you do a Renaissance paper, you do an 18th century paper, and you do a modern paper.
Okay.
Depending on your college, depending on your supervisors, you're able to have some sort of flexibility with that. But there are sort of writers you need to know. You do a Shakespeare term, for fuck's sake. Like, it is fairly prescribed. and only in your third year are you able to sort of choose.
Quite sort of traditional. As an outsider, it's sort of like when people speak about English literature, I feel like this is the syllabus.
The English literature.
The English literature.
Yeah.
It's very much canon with capital C.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is a stereotype. I wonder how true it is. That in mixed schools, all the male students, is it infringing on? I'm getting very much into like generalizations and stereotypes, so I'm like trying to be careful. But there's this sort of stereotype that in a mixed school, it's the boys who sort of get in the way. The boys are the disruptive ones. I mean, remember in primary school, there was always sort of like the rowdy boys, and you'd put them next to the quiet girls. So I wonder how true that is, and how, I don't know what I'm trying to get at here, but
in the context of university, or do you think just in general?
Well, I wonder
like
if
still in a school-based
I
setting?
wonder if not being in an environment with the rowdy boys, how that affected me, and how that affected you coming out of a single sex school, not being with rowdy boys or disruptive boys, because that is sort of the stereotype.
This makes me laugh because it makes me think back to the same maths teacher. Me and Sherry were in the same maths class.
Oh yeah, we were.
Whereby I was the rowdy boy, because I remember getting moved from the front row where I was chatting to all my friends, and got moved to the back row next to the quiet girl. Shout out to Asma, my G.
Oh, shout out.
She's miss her.
Gorge.
I think those dynamics are still at play, but I think it's less damage. Well, I say that. Sorry, Asma, for any trauma.
Do you think it's true that boys are louder and more disruptive, and they're allowed to get away with more?
I think there's a confidence. I think here people talk about like the private schoolboy confidence, but I think there is a general accepted confidence in boys anyway, and that the extent to which, obviously, being in a single sex college and with teaching mostly being college based, I haven't sort of had much with boys until this year. But what's been present throughout is the fact that boys write more assertively and don't sort of caveat what they say with all these sort of tentative phrases of like perhaps and this suggests and maybe, whereas I've read examiners' reports. She does her revision. Oh, hey.
Whoa.
Whereby it says like there is
first. I can smell it. I can smell the first.
Cherry with Love Babes. It's very hard to get a first here.
I can smell the 2-1. Is that the next one?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're hoping for 2-1.
I'll say that.
Anyway.
I believe that you can get first, though. Sorry to interrupt you.
With your naivety. No, I think, so the examiners' reports often discuss the attainment gap between boys and girls, and often attribute it to that confidence with which boys just inherently write with. So I think, whilst I've not really witnessed firsthand the like rowdy boy stereotype, I think it converts into a more, I don't want to say insidious, a more covert form of that confidence that facilitates that kind of rowdiness in schools. So here it's a matter of written down confidence and like faith in your own ideas, whereas I don't think that's as encouraged in girls, or that's not allowed to develop as much in girls. Yeah.
I know you just said that females tend to caveat themselves more. So I'm very sorry, I'm going to caveat. Do you think there are any downsides to being in single sex spaces for such a long period of time? I mean, we were there from year 7 to sixth form, so that's 7 years. 7 years.
For context as well, there were boys in our sixth form. But
That's
in our year,
true.
they were all of 10.
That 10 boys. I don't think I had no boys in sixth form. I didn't have any boys. I had one boy in my history class for a week, and then he switched classes.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, you know what? No, English. I had, yeah.
Oh, shout out.
Yeah.
Shout out to the one boy in Cherry's English class.
He was very lovely and very
You're so
sweet.
valid.
But also, he was very quiet.
Yeah.
He wasn't...
He subverted the narrative.
Subverted the narrative. Always exceptions to the
Such
rule.
feminist.
Such feminist. Yeah. Yeah. Do you think there are any downsides to being in single sex spaces for such a long period of time at you know, a sort of age where you're finding yourself?
I think there's a definite culture shock that comes because you've not really interacted with boys for your sort of formative years.
I've definitely felt that.
But to be honest, like I think, to be fair, my college situation didn't make it as... I'm
trying to tell you to tilt it.
It's
Just tilt.
tilted.
There we go. That's better.
There we go.
Yeah.
Fuck's sake, such a mansplainer. Anyway,
Thank you.
Coming into a single-sex college, it didn't really mean that I sort of escaped that environment initially. Because I think also, for context as well, I started uni during COVID. So
True.
All sort of forms of social contact were limited anyway. It's not even like I had lectures with people. It was all very much quite isolated. But it did mean I became besties with everyone on my floor. Shout out to the wives.
Yes. And also, shout out to your varsity article, which explores coming to university in lockdown and making friends with and the different social experience. Go and read it. It's lovely.
Chats about food.
Chats about food.
If anyone wants to hire me to write about food, I'll do it.
Do it, please.
Love food.
Someone please hire Mahvish. She is amazing. And I want to read more of your stuff. Anyway.
Give me a reason to write it. Anyone's is this
Wow.
Whoa.
Wow.
Whoa.
Not working for free, I see.
Do you know what I mean?
You're better than me.
You're not fucking working doing this for free, mate.
Wow.
I can tell you that.
I've got to buy you lunch. God damn
Yeah,
it.
you do.
I'm so annoyed that I said I would. Let's get back on.
I think it's the fact that I didn't reply initially, and then you were like 10 minutes later, I'll buy you lunch.
Yeah.
I had in my mind agreed to it. I just couldn't be asked to reply.
I know.
Anyway, so yeah, like what I do think though is that, you know, my core group of friends at uni is girls.
Yeah.
Love the wives. But beyond that, we do have our network of our friends who are boys. But I do think we've able to develop friendships with the male species, as disgusting as that sounds. But I do think that is impacted. Like it's been a soft launch of befriending them. Do you know what I mean?
Wow.
Because I think when you're in that single sex environment for so long, you're a bit like, I don't know how to talk to anyone who isn't a girl.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think that comes with its own benefits as well.
Yeah.
Like there's not to be really like white girl feminism, but there is that like sense of like solidarity and comfort that you feel around women.
Yeah. That sense of solidarity and that sense of justice.
Yeah.
I think like I remember like seeing teachers treat certain girls unfair and like everyone rallying and being like, no sir, what are you doing? What are you doing? Very much that. Like and also like not being afraid to like shout, I'm on my period, who's got a pad?
Oh my god.
And people literally coming out with like, okay, we have the maxi, we have the super soaked,
I've got the super long, I've got a liner.
And that was never weird. I think there was something really lovely about like, there definitely was less shame about bodies. Yeah. Again, of course there is shame about bodies. Of course. Like that is in today's society. Society. We do live in a society, and it is inescapable to not hate yourself. Yeah. On you know every point on the gender spectrum, you're gonna hate your body. But there definitely felt like less shame. And I remember sort of like first week of year 7 being in the changing rooms for PE and like hiding in the corner and being so scared that if you looked around, someone was gonna call you gay. But then, like, you get to, like, a few years in, no one cared.
So fine.
People be walking around with their bras, no bras.
Yeah.
It like, you'd feel a certain comfort about being surrounded by the same body. Yeah. And that is very, you know, I'm sort of diving into kind of very binary feminism there. But, you know, it was a single-sex space.
I think as well the fact you say the same body, I'm going to refute you on that, and I'm going to advocate.
Go ahead.
For the fact that there were different bodies.
True.
But I think that helped in, you know, affirming the idea that we don't all have to look the same. We don't have to all have the same body type. Body expectations aren't real. Like, it's all very superficial.
Yeah.
The way we think we need to look. I think being surrounded by such diversity in how we all looked was helpful in a way.
To be honest, though, this is me going against advocating for our all-girls school.
Beef.
Like, I remember in my first year, in PE, they weighed us. Do you remember this?
Yeah, that was bad.
And I remember everyone sharing, how much do you weigh? How much do you weigh? And I was the second heaviest in the class. And I hated myself. Being surrounded by people to compare myself with. And I went home, cried to my mum about it. And I found out years later that she actually called up the school and spoke to the principal and said, like, this is absolutely ridiculous. Why are you doing this? Shout out Jessie. I don't think they did anything about it, though. And look,
no, because we had to do it again in year 9.
Yeah. And I look back and I go, how fucked up is that?
Yeah.
I think there is a stereotype about, like, all girls schools where it's like, their eating disorders are worse. And I don't know if that is true, but I definitely think I don't know, maybe if I was in a mixed school and we did the same thing, maybe I would hate myself in equal measure. But I wonder if being surrounded by only other girls kind of made me self-conscious.
Yeah.
Let's get into some of the sort of other negatives. In a society where very slowly we are moving past sort of the gender binary, very slowly, and in fact...
So do you want to say very slowly one more time?
Very slowly, and in fact there's so much fucking pushback that I don't want to dive too deeply into today because that's not really the topic of conversation, but...
She did do a very long rant in brunch.
I did. It
was cumbersome.
Do you think the trans and non-binary rights are cumbersome then?
Yeah, I do actually.
Wow.
Disclaimer, I don't. Please stop hiring me.
Cancel her.
The bloody wokies.
Oh my God. You know what? Maybe if you just...
Maybe that's my audience.
Yeah, maybe you need to switch over to GB News.
Okay. I'm joking. Get to the point, we have lunch to have.
Do you think that in a world where we are very slowly moving past gender, that single-sex spaces are a thing that can exist? Like, can single-sex spaces exist alongside sort of this new wave of gender theory, I'm going to say? I'm trying to find a way to... that's me trying to be eloquent and phrase myself in a way that isn't just us having a bitch.
Say it in a cherry way.
I feel like I've said it. Is there space for single-sex spaces in a world that is slowly becoming more accepting of the fact that gender isn't binary?
I think there would have to be mass overhaul for us to be able to think that. Because as we were saying at brunch, if you didn't know we went for brunch, we are going, I think, rather than going slowly, fuck's sake.
Mahvish keeps moving away from the mic. And
I'm animated.
I said to her
Sorry,
beforehand,
I have a personality.
I said to her beforehand, like, you can't move too much. You can't move around. It's too much. You have to keep moving. And I'm really sorry. Please, carry on.
Why can't we have Beyonce mics? Fuck's sake, level up. Anyway, as we were saying, we're almost going backwards rather than just progressing slowly. So I think if that continues, I think it's just going to be harder and harder to sort of conceptualise this sort of accepting nature of that kind of space. I think we had people in our school who didn't conform to the gender binary and they got taken the piss out of, to be honest. Yeah.
I think something I was really surprised with going back to... I was about to say the name of the school. Going back to the school.
Our school.
Going back to our school as a teacher. I came in December 2020. I was really surprised by like how many more out kids there were. And I do think we were lucky that our school had a lot of teachers advocating for the queer students. That being said, wasn't perfect. Definitely was bullying.
Yeah.
Definitely was resentment. I think there was a little bit of resentment from like, why are the queer kids getting advocated for? Why aren't we getting advocated for? What for? You know, our other.
Oh, I'm gonna drop a hot take in a minute.
Go ahead. Go on. Drop your hot take.
I do see that side of things because race. I think whilst our school was in a very ethnic area, the senior leadership wasn't as diverse as it should have been. It wasn't as representative of the student body, and I think whilst we can say that, you know, queer kids were able to have a fair few figures of authority who saw them, recognised them, could actually empathise with their experiences, I think we were really struggling on the race front of things.
I would absolutely agree.
I do think there has been issues whereby there's been a forum to raise things, and, you know, schools, plural, including our school, in the wake of sort of some recent contemporary, not recent as in the last few years, issues have come up, and there's been this sort of drive and motivation to talk about these things and deal with them and confront them. But when they get a bit too real, there's this desire to sort of put an end to that and sort of sweep it under the rug and say, actually, it's not as bad. And actually, you know what, it's fine. We don't need to talk about this anymore, or it's not a worthwhile project to continue with.
Is it sort of whataboutisms? Well, you know, we can't say for definite, or we can't.
Yeah. And there's just this sort of, I think institutions are going to be institutions at the end of the day. And as much as you want to understand the people you're there to support and nurture and, in a way, raise, you do come up against these problems where you have to look at yourself and think, am I doing it for them, or am I doing it for the institution? Yeah. And I think, to be honest, it is, no matter how much you care for the kids, it is always going to come back to the fact that I need to protect myself at this institution, and sadly, I can't really jeopardise my position too much by listening to the very real realities that some of these students face.
I mean, if they were fully to listen, it would be to put themselves at risk, right? Because then they would have to admit, I've had some serious shortcomings.
I'm complicit in that.
I'm complicit.
You know, at best, complicit. At worst, perpetrating, sure. Yeah. I think we've witnessed a lot of that across the board. That's one of the things that I think was part and parcel of a single-sex school. We spoke about advocacy before, and everyone being really sort of confident with their opinions. I think we were a very politically engaged school.
Yeah.
Students were fucking passionate about that shit. I remember we went into our local polling station, which was only sort of 2 minutes from the back of school, and went in and yelled, "Vote Labour," before the general election in, like, 2016. We were, 15 at that point?
Yeah.
And I think, whilst, you know, I will say this, in retrospect, we all didn't have a very secure grasp on politics at the time, but I don't think that was also something to be sort of suppressed and put down.
No. It was, us having political opinions was very much encouraged.
Yeah.
To be fair, though, depending on the teacher.
That's another thing. It wasn't standardised across the board.
We're in a lot of the same classes, and I think we were quite lucky that we had teachers that that they would always go, "I'm not allowed to agree with you, but I encourage you to carry on talking about it."
Yeah. We had an assignment one time in, I think, again, around 2016, where we had to write about the general election.
Yeah.
And it was like, it might have been encouraging voting or something. I think it was, about...
I think it was about young people voting, whether we thought that young people should vote.
Yeah.
Do you think that engagement in politics would have been as nurtured in a mixed school? Or do you think it doesn't matter?
This is not to stereotype. I do think...
I feel like we're too far in the episode to be saying this, but, like, I feel like part of this conversation is we're just going to have to make generalizations. It's talking about...
Oh, yeah, 100%.
It's talking about single-sex spaces. It's talking about dividing...
Yeah.
You know, dividing up the country.
Yeah. And this is all quite anecdotal anyway, so...
Yeah, it's all... Yeah. Absolutely, go for it. We want anecdotes.
Like, I think I think the nature of a lot of students in our school being women, well, being girls to be fair at the time, often from ethnic backgrounds, often from working class backgrounds. I think there are a lot of issues that affected us firsthand. So I think that
you can't
necessitated an engagement in politics.
But be political.
But I think it's a lot more difficult to have that conversation with boys. How can you tell boys to care about women's rights, especially at an age where they love being contrarians? Everyone loves being a contrarian at some point in their life.
Everyone wants to be the devil's advocate.
But that is a lot more heavily facilitated in mixed schools, I'd say. You're able to entertain, boys will be boys, devil's advocate, all of that sort of stuff.
I wonder if we would have been shouted down a lot more as well.
Yeah.
I have a cousin, my youngest cousin, who's very politically engaged. Shout out Ruby, love you babs. And she's very politically engaged, very, very loud about it in school. She goes to a mixed school. She's in sixth form at the moment. She gets called trousers. Like the boys will see her coming, oh fuck, here comes trousers, about to like shove her feminist opinion down her throat. Like, and we sort of had a laugh about it, but I noticed my grandmother really being like, oh, that is just disgusting. And I think she had a very different reaction. My reaction was to laugh and go, God, isn't that fucking ridiculous?
Yeah.
Because, to be fair, I've never particularly experienced that, at least not in school.
Yeah.
I never experienced getting shouted down by a man at school.
Yeah.
So I think being in a single-sex school, I was allowed to express my opinions. I was allowed to debate. One of the things I loved about being a redacted is that we were really encouraged to debate.
Conversation was encouraged.
Yeah, conversation was encouraged. Debate was encouraged, and like
by nature of being a single-sex space, we were able to get beyond.
It was a level playing field.
Yeah, and we weren't like the conversation got beyond just shouting down or just taking the piss, which I think is a lot more prevalent in mixed-sex schools, because it's you either get shut down, or you get ridiculed, and at that point, you know, you might feel embarrassed to continue. You might just feel like you can't be asked to continue. But I think by nature of our school being very politically engaged, very opinionated,
yes,
I think we were able to get beyond that initial point that I think the teachers didn't even anticipate a lot of the time. I don't think they saw us having views as strong as we did. We weren't radicals. I'll say that now.
Looking back, I thought I was the most leftist person. I thought as a little 16-year-old, I was like,
Tory.
And now,
tax bracket.
Now, you bitch. Now I am a
I would lefty.
I thought I was really lefty, and like looking back, I'm like I was pretty centrist, and now I am very
far right,
very, very, very far right. Hate women. No, I am. I think I'm very left, very, very left leaning, and I think you are as well. And I think, I feel like maybe if we hadn't been in mixed space, maybe we wouldn't be so left leaning, or maybe we wouldn't be so vocal about it.
I think it'd be the case whereby we just wouldn't have had these discussions in school. Yeah, not to be like, oh my god, school's brainwashing, blah blah blah. But I think the nature of our school being very encouraging towards discussions, at least to a certain point, let people develop views, whatever they were. Very much. And through that, by consequence, develop a sense of self and identity that was politically engaged and sort of cared about issues that affected them. Yeah. Which I think then facilitated the ability to advocate for ourselves, which was really helpful.
Yeah. This conversation is very, very much anecdotal and very much talking about our own experience being in a girls' school. What we haven't really talked about is all boys' schools. Ooh. And I'm
all boys' schools, Eton, what are the ops?
I mean, that's kind of what I was going to ask. Like, being from Cambridge, many of these sort of elite grammar schools and private schools, Eton, I don't know the names of any others. Harrow. Oh,
Manchester.
Yeah, I do know the names of others. Yeah. Any
this
more
thing,
you want to
I only know these because I go here.
Right? Do you, like, how do you feel about those schools? Those single-sex schools?
I think this is the thing. I think there's more single-sex state comps or even state grammars than there are boys' equivalents.
Right.
I think a lot of the single sex boys' schools are primarily private, I'd say.
Yeah.
With some grammar. So I think they cultivate the same thing, essentially, the sense of advocacy and opinions and all that sort of stuff.
However,
but it's a different political leaning.
Yeah.
For the most part, I'd say.
And to be fair, it's also like, I think just by the way our society works, there is that boys will be boys attitude. I do think boys generally, again, we're making very, very sweeping generalizations.
No one cancel us for this, please.
Please, please. Imagine if we get cancelled the first episode.
Fuck's sake.
You know, it's...
That attitude is sort of...
Yeah.
It would be extreme to say encouraged, but I won't rule that out.
I wonder if all the
But it's not challenged.
The toxic things that come with traditional masculinity get exacerbated.
Oh, big word.
Well, we had... I don't know how common this is. We had the local boys' school just like 10 minutes away.
There's no real crossover. This is the thing.
There's no crossover.
I think
none.
There was less of a culture of like the boys' school and the girls' school.
Yeah.
That we just both existed in.
I wonder how
space.
typical that is.
I think it might be atypical for us, to be fair.
Yeah.
I think maybe London's just a bit different in that sense. Yeah. We're so different. We're from London.
Oh my God.
But like, I do think there's less challenge to those opinions, often problematic, that can come out of those sorts of spaces.
Yeah.
And I think there's a greater duty of care and responsibility on the teachers to sort of regulate that behaviour, but at the same time...
Are they
doing that?
Are they taking up the mantle? Is that the phrase? Taking up the mantle?
I don't fucking know. I should know, but I don't.
Call into the show and tell me if I've got that phrase
Ring
right.
07.
No, you can't put my... I'll just edit it out. If... Hypotheticals. We're getting into hypotheticals.
Oh, okay, go on.
In 10 years, 20 years, however long you want, you have 2 children, a boy and a girl.
Ooh.
Would you send them to single-sex schools?
Fuck's sake, I should have seen this question coming.
Ooh. Have I thrown a curveball at you?
You actually have.
I actually have. Damn.
I'm surprised.
Wow.
This is the thing. I'm of the mind of like, I'd want to send the girl to a girls' school, to be honest.
Would you want to send the boy to a boys' school?
This is the thing.
Don't think you would.
But to be fair, I think I'd rather send him to a mixed school, but raise him to be an ally. Because I think rather than have him...
I wasn't assuming you'd be raising an incel.
To be fair. But like, no, but in the sense of like, how much can I do versus how much of his like behaviour and perception and sort of attitudes towards others is going to be shaped by the environment he's in.
Yeah.
Because they do, like, kids do spend more, like, I don't know percentages, but like they spend a significant enough time at school away from home to be able to become God knows what.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I'd rather he just not be an arsehole.
Yeah.
And go to mixed school.
I mean, we both have older brothers.
We do.
Faisal went to...
Shout
out. Big ups.
It's his birthday today. Happy birthday.
Is it? Yeah. Oh my God, happy birthday, Faisal.
Yeah.
Have you sent him a text?
I have.
Aw. Well.
I was going to send him a cat picture, but I've sent him all the cat pictures I have.
Oh, boo.
Yeah.
Boo.
Yeah.
My brother, Oscar, also shout out, went
big
to...
ups.
Big ups.
Is his birthday not soon?
Yes.
Gone.
12th of April.
April.
Yep. Yeah, we both have older brothers who both went to mixed schools. Am I right?
Okay.
Oh, really?
What? Actually, wait.
Where did Faisal go?
Oh, no, it's mixed.
Oh, okay.
Oh, whoops.
So he went to a mixed school?
Yeah.
Is your brother an arsehole?
No. But I do think, not to be like, oh my God, women do so much labour, I think he would have been a worse person had he not had a sister. Do you think the same about Oscar?
I don't know. That's really hard because
I think
you're
you're closer in age. You are closer in age, objectively.
Yeah.
than me with her.
Subjectively, me and Oscar,
Subjectively, he's 50.
in my opinion, Oscar is a child. No, he's not. I really look up to my brother.
He's so do I, to be fair.
He's a really
not
big
my brother.
He's a really
Shout out.
He's a really big role model to me.
Yeah.
And I think he's always been very caring towards me, and he's always been very much like protective of me. And from, I wouldn't know because I was a baby, and or not born.
And or
not born. The sort of anecdotes I get from my parents and my grandparents is, you know, when you were born, Oscar was so caring and so...
and how the tables turntabled. No one hates your guts.
But you know what, mate?
Jokes, he thought you were dead this morning.
Oh my God, yeah. I didn't tell him what I was doing, and he sent me a text being like, where are you? Did you get home last night? Because I left very early in the morning.
5:40 to be precise.
Yeah, maybe he wouldn't be as much of a feminist. But
This thing, I think I've cultivated emotional intelligence in my brother. I think he wasn't bad without my influence, but I think he's a bit more sensitive and receptive to the world.
Sure.
As an individual, do you know what I mean?
I mean, it's so hard to say, and I feel bad talking about him when he's not here, because I know he's not. I know Oscar's going to be listening. Hi, Oscar. Yeah, maybe I'd be very, very surprised if he turned out to be like what's the Meninist?
Oh, that was such an outdated thing.
Yeah, it's very 2016
years ago. Yeah,
he wouldn't be like a men's rights activist.
No.
I'd be very surprised if he was like hard right on GB News. He you know, I come from a very sort of left leaning socialist family, so I'm sure he'd be the same. I'd be very surprised. But maybe having a sister has made him more sympathetic. Oscar, call into the show and let me know when you listen to this. And maybe that's true of mixed schools. You know, I don't know if this was your experience in primary school. I was always used as like a behaviour buffer. Teachers would consistently put me next to like the loud, rowdy boys because they were like, Cherry is quiet and well behaved. Stick her next to the rowdy boys because that will make them behave better. I don't know how
to pick me, but that wasn't me. I was the rowdy boy.
You were the rowdy boy.
I like to have competitions. I competed with my friend Ben. Shout out to Ben. I haven't seen you in years.
I was too anxious to misbehave.
I think I just had untreated ADHD.
Vibes.
I was insistent upon being the fastest girl in year 6. It's like I think
you weren't like those other girls.
I wasn't like other girls. I needed a behaviour buffer. Yeah. More than anything. But no, to be fair, I was more quiet than I was in secondary school. Yeah. In primary school. But I don't think... I think our school was fairly evenly split. There was only one class.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, they only expanded after I left.
Small primary school.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. No, it wasn't as big to sort of need that, I'd say.
Okay. Well... I think there's somewhat of a trend in teachers, and I've actually, funnily enough, I've seen a lot on TikTok about it. I hate to bring up TikTok in the first episode. I want to shoot myself.
But we love TikTok nonetheless.
We love TikTok nonetheless. It's like a toxic lover. Oh God, I want to vomit. I've seen a lot about like girls being used as behaviour buffers, and very often I would be put next to boys to make them behave better. I don't know if that ever actually worked. And it made me fucking miserable because I'd be sat next to these boys who would like be loud and want me to concentrate, and they'd sort of pick on me a little bit. But I wonder if mixed schools kind of are large behaviour buffers for the male population, where it's like, or does it teach boys to not be so loud with their what's the word, prejudices and hot takes that women don't deserve the vote.
What, by being sat next to?
Yeah, or I wonder.
I disagree.
We've been talking a lot about like all girls schools.
Yeah.
I wonder how an all boys school / mixed education would affects men.
Behaviour buffers.
Yeah, I like. Does it, similar to us saying, does having little sisters made our older brothers better? Does being in mixed schools make boys better? Or does it teach them to hide it?
I think it's the behaviour buffers. Great phrase.
It's a good one.
I think that does just sort of plant the seeds of the idea that women are there to regulate men's behaviours. In the sense of like, rather than working with boys specifically and sort of correcting that behaviour and teaching them what's what, not in like an authoritarian way, but in like a, rather than using other people to help fix those behaviours, because then you see that kind of dynamic perpetuated in the future, in friendships, in relationships, in like the workplace. Like, women have to take on the responsibility of being the fixers, the sort of managers, the babysitters, so to speak. And so I don't think it curates that same sort of sensitivity that I think we're talking about with having younger sisters. I think it sort of detracts from the problem and sort of I can't remember the phrase where it's like you sort of hide the problem rather than like sort of dealing with it.
It's teaching boys that girls are there to sort of facilitate and maintain their behaviour, maybe.
But at the same time, I think that dynamic's replicated in all boys' schools. This is purely hypothetical now because obviously we don't have experience of that.
No.
But in the sense of like, you'd still sort of see, in my mind at least, the rowdier boys being sat next to the quieter boys. Like, I think it's more of a outspoken juxtaposed with the quiet people. And that in a mixed school is often the boys and the girls. In a single sex school for boys, I think that's probably just the rowdy ones and the quiet
rowdy ones and the quiet ones, similar to being in an all girls school.
That's me and asthma. Do you know what I mean?
We've had a very roundabout conversation about education, so I'm going to ask for your thesis statement. Has single sex education had its day? What's your thesis statement? That was a disgusting pronunciation for me, and we're going past it. Tell me.
My thesis statement would be, I don't think they've had their day, to be honest. I'm quite pro, actually. I think we need to recognise it for its merits and not stigmatise them so much, but also recognise that the issues that they come up against and the issues that they can perpetuate require a broader restructuring and reworking. But isn't that, to be fair, that's the same for a lot of things, realistically. That's a very general statement.
I think, every education would be, it'd be great to sort of overhaul it and reform it. Thank you very much for sitting the All Souls entrance exam. Woo!
Yay!
In this version of All Souls, everyone gets in. Mahvish, I am so glad to welcome you to podcast All Souls, alternate reality All Souls. I haven't quite settled on the name yet. So you have 7 years of funding.
Fuck.
You have free board, you get a salary, you get access to study any subject at Oxford of your choosing, and you get contacts with leading professionals and scholars in your field. So basically no financial barriers anymore, virtually limitless open doors. If you had 7 years to just sort of learn and discover, what would you do?
Order a fuck ton of Uber Eats. I kid. I think I'd like to travel with that money. I think at least one of the limitations that I felt regarding education, regarding university, blah, 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 has been, it's all been very rooted here in England, in Cambridge. And I think I would like to break beyond the bounds of that, go to other countries, look at their cultural scene. I love me a cultural scene. You know what I'd do? I'd look at food.
You look at food.
Uber Eats was a jest, but I think I'd like to look at how the cultural significance of food in different communities, and the role it plays in society, and use that as a reason to travel basically everywhere for 7 years.
You kind of touched on it already with sort of like talking about teachers in the past who have taken you less seriously because of your race. You've spoken about, not having their financial means to travel as much as some of your peers here at Cambridge. What sort of barriers do you feel like you face to education and discovery?
Economic.
I
think also, to be fair, I know this is a very privileged thing to say, having nearly completed now a Cambridge education, which, is very sought after. I think there are limits within that.
Yeah.
I think there's financial barriers that don't go away when you come to an institution such as this because of the collegiate system. You know, some people are able to get more money out of their college than others. And that does perpetuate a very unfair system. So I'd say that. But also the very fact that we discussed earlier about the sort of Cambridge canon, not just of literature, but the fact that there's a very prescribed set of things that is deemed right to study.
Yeah.
And sort of appropriate to study and sort of necessary to have the sort of cultural mobility we spoke about earlier. So I think the canon has been a barrier, I'd say. I remember even in preparation for my like entrance exam and interview for here, our ex-English teacher gave me a set of about 40 books that she said I should read before applying or before sitting anything I needed to apply.
Did you read any of them?
Absolutely not, and I still got in.
Whoa!
But I think, do you see what I mean? In the fact that the canon goes before you even apply to somewhere like here. Go on.
I mean, you very almost didn't study here.
Oh yeah. I didn't get in first time.
Context.
Context.
We never sat our A-level exams because we were meant to sit them in 2020. And I don't know if you guys know this, but there was a pandemic. Did you know this?
I hadn't a clue.
Right. So all of our exams got cancelled and our grades were given to us by our teachers. And I mean, just first off, teachers giving you your grades. Sadly, there's going to be a
lot of bias in that.
Going to be a lot of bias in that, and every prejudice, you know, on the planet,
conscious or subconscious,
conscious or subconscious, is going to come into that. Whether or not, you know, even if teachers try their darndest, I don't know. I've never said that before, and I don't know why I said it now.
I feel like you said it before.
I don't think I have. Carry on. Anyway, even if teachers trying their hardest, like it's still going to come up.
Yeah.
But both of our grades got
downgraded
by
the algorithm
because of the big old scary government algorithm. And part of the algorithm was if you lived in a lower income area, if you went to a state school, they looked at your background and that affected what your grade was. So
background of the school as well.
Background of the school,
school's attainment history as well.
Yeah. So what did the algorithm give you, and what did you actually get? And I mean, what were you given by the teachers?
Well, I didn't deserve those grades.
No. You're a fraud.
The algorithm gave me 3 A stars. No, it didn't. That's just a complete
didn't.
lie.
That's an
the algorithm gave me 3 A's, but my teachers, God bless, gave me 3 A stars.
Oh, very nice.
Shout out.
But because of your background, because of the school's background, because of where you lived, you almost weren't able to come here.
Yeah.
I mean, so every now and then I think back to that and I go, how insanely fucked up was that?
So true.
I know, I just think back to that algorithm and I think, like what were they
It was
actually
very
thinking?
wrong for it to be put in the hands of something like that. And I do think that was... We spoke about, you know, differences between experience at a state comp versus grammar or private and how those have come to light at university. I think the very fact that the differences came to light before we even got into university, for context, if you're in a class of, I think, 15 or less or 10 or less, your grades didn't get altered by the algorithm.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So people who went to private schools or grammar schools with smaller classes, our classes had minimum 30 people, sometimes 35.
Yeah.
And so automatically everyone the vast majority at least, got downgraded because it didn't seem possible for so many people to do well. But if you went to, you know, or if you did a very undersubscribed course, your grades weren't changed. It was never in our control, is what I say.
I mean, it's just blatant classism, prejudice, elitism, racism, all the isms thrown in there all at once.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I suppose that's a barrier you faced your education as well.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I said
it's fun. Oh. Yeah. I'm trying to find a way to round it out.
But you know what? I'm here now. I've nearly finished my time here and it's been so much fun and I love my friends and I love the institution. That's a lie. I don't love the institution. But I am grateful for the degree it's going to give me at the end of the day.
Have you enjoyed your experience at Cambridge?
Oh, I absolutely have.
Yeah. Yeah. Is there anything else you'd like to add about sort of like
what I do with
barriers to education, or like anything you want to add to like what you would do with like 7 years and what that would mean to you? And you can say no.
It would mean a lot. It would just mean, I think, being able to exist in a space that is devoid of a lot of the barriers. Not all, a lot of the barriers. But I think there's also a thing to acknowledge in that, I guess, is that it's often not only financial barriers that people face.
Yeah.
And the sort of prejudice and things that, you know, won't be shaken off by nature of who you are.
Yeah.
Say a woman, say a person of colour, say a queer person. And there's sort of facets of your identity that aren't able to be mitigated by money. So I think that is another factor to be considered. You can have all the money in the world, but that doesn't necessarily grant you a easy ride of it or erase any sort of prejudice you might come up against. So I will still struggle in some sense. I'll probably still get racially abused in some country.
Yeah.
But at least it will have nice food. So
true. Mahvish, thank you so much for being my first guest.
You're so gassed. This is so embarrassing.
I am. I'm really
Don't wax lyrical about me now. I want food.
I think you're a brilliant person, and
okay.
I'm really glad you came on. Before we
I'm literally in my room, babes. I could have just voice noted you this.
You for sure could have. We should have just FaceTimed. What am I doing?
Hi, Key. You just want a day out in Cambridge?
No. Anyway, what? Before we say goodbye, is there anything you'd like to plug, promote?
I promote myself.
Promote yourself.
As
yourself as an individual. Nice.
Yeah. So.
Oh, sexy. Thank you so much for listening. Again, this is a pilot test episode, so we are still working out. Why are you laughing? Oh my god, someone's just started hoovering. I hope you can't hear that. Thank you so much for listening to this pilot test episode of The Exam Room. Thank you so much for stopping by. There is much more to come from me and from The Exam Room. I've been your host, Cherry Eccles. You can find me on social media at Cherry the Eccles on Instagram and Twitter. That's Eccles spelled Eckel. And you can also find me on YouTube, Cherry Eccles. Again, cherry like the fruit, Eccles, Eckel. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for stopping by. I hope you have a lovely day wherever you are, whoever you are. See you soon. Mahvish, anything to add? Anything you want to shout?
I hate you, Cherry.
Love you too, Babs. Have a great day. That's it. That's the episode. Thanks for listening to it. A couple of thank yous just to round out this episode. I know I said it was the end of the episode and I know I did my goodbyes, but I can't leave. I'm going to do one more. Firstly, a very big thank you to you for listening. Thank you. I really appreciate it. Number 2, big ol' thank you to Mahvish, my guest for this pilot episode. Thank you for letting me come and invade your space with my mics and my heavy mic carrying case. Number 3, a massive thank you to the people over at Boundless Theatre whose support made this podcast possible. It would not exist without them. So please go show them some love at Boundless Abound on social media. And while you're there, come show me some love too at the Exam Hall Pod. And while you're there, maybe get in contact. Come be a guest on a future episode. There is so much more to come, and I cannot wait to share it with you all. I'm going to stop talking now and let you get on with your life. Have a lovely day.